Two Indian Fairy Tales. First story. The Talkative Tortoise. The future Buddha was once born in a minister's family when Brahmadatta was reigning in Benares, and when he grew up, he became the king's advisor in things temporal and spiritual. Now, this king was very talkative. While he was speaking, others had no opportunity for a word. And the future Buddha, wanting to cure this talkativeness of his, was constantly seeking for some means of doing so. At that time, there was living in a pond in the Himalaya mountains a tortoise. Two young hamsas, or wild ducks, who came to feed there, made friends with him. And one day, when they had become very intimate with him, they said to the tortoise, "Friend Tortoise, the place where we live, at the Golden Cave on Mount Beautiful in the Himalaya country, is a delightful spot. Will you come there with us?" "But how can I get there?" "We can take you if you can only hold your tongue and will say nothing to anybody." "Oh, that I can do. Take me with you." "That's right," said they, and making the tortoise bite hold of a stick, they themselves took the two ends in their teeth and flew up into the air. Seeing him thus carried by the hamsas, some villagers called out, "Two wild ducks are carrying a tortoise along on a stick." Whereupon the tortoise wanted to say, "If my friends choose to carry me, what is that to you, you wretched slaves?" So, just as the swift flight of the wild ducks had brought him over the king's palace in the city of Benares, he let go of the stick he was biting, and falling in the open courtyard, split in two. And there arose a universal cry, "A tortoise has fallen in the open courtyard and has split in two." The king, taking the future Buddha, went to the place surrounded by his courtiers, and looking at the tortoise, he asked the Bodhisattva, "Teacher, how comes he to be fallen here?" The future Buddha thought to himself, "Long expecting, wishing to admonish the king, have I sought for some means of doing so. This tortoise must have made friends with the wild ducks, and they must have made him bite hold of the stick, and have flown up into the air to take him to the hills. But he, being unable to hold his tongue when he hears anyone else talk, must have wanted to say something and let go the stick, and so must have fallen down from the sky and thus lost his life. And saying, 'Truly, O king, those who are called chatterboxes, people whose words have no end, come to grief like this,' he uttered these verses. Verily, the tortoise killed himself whilst uttering his voice. Though he was holding tight the stick, by a word himself he slew. Behold him then, O excellent by strength, and speak wise words not out of season. You see how, by his talking overmuch, the tortoise fell into this wretched plight." The king saw that he was himself referred to and said, "O teacher, are you speaking of us?" And the Bodhisattva spake openly and said, "O great king, be it thou, or be it any other, whoever talks beyond measure meets with some mishap like this." And the king henceforth refrained himself, and became a man of few words. Second story. Pride goeth before a fall. In a certain village, there lived 10 cloth merchants who always went about together. Once upon a time, they had traveled far afield and were returning home with a great deal of money which they had obtained by selling their wares. Now, there happened to be a dense forest near their village, and this they reached early one morning. In it, there lived 3 notorious robbers, of whose existence the traders had never heard, and while they were still in the middle of it, the robbers stood before them with swords and cudgels in their hands, and ordered them to lay down all they had. The traders had no weapons with them, and so, though they were many more in number, they had to submit themselves to the robbers, who took away everything from them, even the very clothes they wore, and gave to each only a small loincloth, a span in breadth, and a cubit in length. The idea that they had conquered 10 men and plundered all their property now took possession of the robbers' minds. They seated themselves like 3 monarchs before the men they had plundered and ordered them to dance to them before returning home. The merchants now mourned their fate. They had lost all they had except their loincloth, and still the robbers were not satisfied, but ordered them to dance. There was among the 10 merchants one who was very clever. He pondered over the calamity that had come upon him and his friends, the dance that they would have to perform, and the magnificent manner in which the 3 robbers had seated themselves on the grass. At the same time, he observed that these last had placed their weapons on the ground in the assurance of having thoroughly cowed the traders, who were now commencing to dance. So he took the lead in the dance, and as a song is always sung by the leader on such occasions, to which the rest keep time with their hands and feet, he thus began to sing. We are Enti men, they are Erith men. If each Erith man surrounded Eno men, Eno man remains. Ta tai tom tadingana. The robbers were all uneducated and thought that the leader was merely singing a song as usual. So, it was in one sense, for the leader commenced from a distance and had sung the song over twice before he and his companions commenced to approach the robbers. They had understood his meaning because they had been trained in trade. When 2 traders discuss the price of an article in the presence of a purchaser, they use a riddling sort of language. What is the price of this cloth? One trader will ask another. Nt rupees, another will reply, meaning 10 rupees. Thus, there is no possibility of the purchaser knowing what is meant unless he be acquainted with the trade language. By the rules of this secret language, Erith means 3, Nt means 10, and Eno means 1. So the leader, by his song, meant to hint to his fellow traders that they were 10 men, the robbers only 3. That if 3 pounced upon each of the robbers, 9 of them could hold them down, while the remaining 1 bound the robbers' hands and feet. The 3 thieves, glorying in their victory and little understanding the meaning of the song and the intentions of the dancers, were proudly seated chewing betel and tobacco. Meanwhile, the song was sung a 3rd time. Ta tai tom had left the lips of the singer, and before Tadingana was out of them, the traders separated into parties of 3, and each party pounced upon a thief. The remaining one, the leader himself, tore up into long, narrow strips a large piece of cloth 6 cubits long, and tied the hands and feet of the robbers. These were entirely humbled now, and rolled on the ground like 3 bags of rice. The 10 traders now took back all their property and armed themselves with the swords and cudgels of their enemies, and when they reached their village, they often amused their friends and relatives by relating their adventure.